Let's talk about Pete Rose. All right. Pete Rose was welcomed back to baseball in any shape or form over the last handful of years when he's been commentating and offering some analysis and getting he's on this goodwill tour, it seems like, and everybody seems to want to accommodate it. Well, he gets invited back to the Phillies ballpark, to Citizens Bank Ballpark, right? That's what it's called. And he to celebrate the 1980 victory, World Series victory, and his allegations of sexual misconduct come up again. Now, for those of you that are unfamiliar with the story, Pete Rose was accused of some things that had to do with being naughty back in the day, and those allegations have remained unfounded. There seems to be no substantial evidence whatsoever, as far as I could find. However, that's not the point. The point now is he was brought, those questions were brought again leading up to this engagement he had to be celebratory of the 1980 World Series in Philadelphia with his team. His teammates want him there. The journalist asked him about these allegations and what's happening and how it's going, etc. And he says, that was 50 years ago, babe.
Oh,
yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Now, help your case there, sir.
Yeah, he's upset that they're bringing this back up. The context here, they were supposed to celebrate the 1980 World Series in 2017, or was it a different celebration? Doesn't matter. Pete Rose was supposed to come back to the Phillies and do a big celebratory thing in 2017, but because of this very allegation, they couldn't, in good conscience, bring him back. They had to make sure it got all fleshed out. So this accusation comes from when he was playing in Cincinnati, etc. The point is, he kind of put his foot in his mouth, and then in an effort to apologize after the fact, after it's a horrible PR move to call a woman babe on live TV these days, right? Especially under the circumstances, Pete. he and I love all the people that are like, well, that situation was 50 years ago. How come we can't talk about that? Well, but we're here to celebrate the 1980 World Series victory. It's like, come on, dude. You just can't have it both ways. Yeah. Anyway, so he offered as in recompense or whatever for his comment to sign 1,000 baseballs for this woman, which, interestingly enough, drives down the value of Pete Rose signed baseballs. Every one of them.
Yeah.
So, Brad, what is your take on all of this? Ready to go.
Well, I mean, you've got to, I get it. He's an old man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you talk to old people and they're going to say things that you don't like. It's just like, we used to talk to my grandpa sometimes and be like, wow, that was a really interesting conversation, right? But that doesn't justify it. If he's going to be speaking to the media and the public, he needs to be prepared with how to answer questions, things not to say, things to say. I'm not necessarily blaming his PR people, but at the same time, maybe they should have said, no interviews. You're old. Yeah. You're an old guy. Yeah. Don't get in front of a camera unless it's at a distance. Don't hold a microphone.
Yep.
Right?
That is a great point.
I mean, there's that, but also like you would hope that he would have learned from something over the years, you know?
Yeah.
But
or
again,
that somebody would have said something like, dude, it's not the 60s and 70s anymore. You can't just throw out these pet names everywhere you go to anyone and their dog, because it's just not that kind of world anymore. It's just not. You're gonna offend somebody.
Yeah.
Whether you mean to or not, it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
Perception is reality. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so your question was, how does this impact or impair or affect?
Well, and it's not even so much like this part of it. It's just like Pete Rose coming back to a celebration, being allowed onto a baseball field again for the first time in how long, right?
All of the time.
Like, how does like how does that affect his case for getting into the Hall of Fame? Do you think it changes anything at all? That maybe there's a softening, or is it like still like nope, not happening?
I think it's still split right down the middle. I heard reports that there were boos when he was announced onto the field in Philly.
Hmm.
And he both support in the post interview. He said, I'm just here to support the fans. I'm here for the franchise. I'm here for my teammates. And then he said something like, most of you weren't even born at the time this all happened. Like, what do you know? And it was pretty gruff,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion. And I thought, once again, come on, Pete, because I've been advocating that he get another look,
Right.
specifically since the scandal in Houston and those players having gone unpunished.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm not saying he deserves to get in. I'm just saying let's revisit it. But it's a tough case, man. It's tough. Do I think people are softening? Yeah, I think that's significant. I think that's happening. Do I think it's enough? I don't.
Right.
And that makes me sad. But it also just is what it is.
And see, that's the thing with me is that like, yeah, people are softening because the opinion of gambling has really softened, especially in the last 5 years, right? Like
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
time throughout the entire country. Um, but on the other hand, though, I've been reading, kind of picking up, putting it down, how baseball happened. And from the very beginning, before Major League Baseball, the National League, any of it was even a thing, there was a manager who fixed a game based on how he set up his roster, and they were like, okay, no more betting on games, we don't want this to happen anymore. And granted, it happened after that, it continued to happen, it happened in the early 1900s, right? And then
Yep.
finally when it happened with the World Series, like we can't be happening that with this, like we can't be having this, especially with the most attended World Series to date, right?
Yep.
Like we can't have this, so Shoeless Joe Jackson and your buddies, you're gone forever,
Yeah.
now we got to be serious about this. And
Yeah.
ever since then, it's been the death sentence, right? They put it
Yep.
up in every single clubhouse. In spring training, they put it up in the batting cages, they put it up in the clubhouses at the big stadiums, everywhere. Everybody knows that it doesn't matter if you're betting for or against your team. Gambling on Major League Baseball is illegal, 1,000%. And that is
Yep.
why I feel like the punishment is warranted.
Yeah.
That, like, I would love the story of Shoeless Joe Jackson to end someday with him in the Hall of Fame. I never got to watch him play. I don't know a whole lot about him other than Field of Dreams and what I've read from like growing up, everything. I don't know a whole lot about Pete Rose other than what I've seen on his baseball cards, what I've watched in documentaries and seen other things on like ESPN, right?
Sure.
I would love for his story to end with him getting into the Hall of Fame. But at the same time, though, if you don't have rules,
Yeah.
what's the point?
Yeah.
And like, and we bring up the Astros all the time. The rule was written that the people who would be punished were the manager and the general manager. No
Yeah.
players were not written into the rule, which is a major problem I have with the whole thing,
Me
because
too.
then the players have no incentive to not break the rule.
Yes.
Like, we don't care
But
about this guy.
it's the same with the steroid era, though. Like those
Yeah.
guys are being passed over for Hall of Fame induction
Mm-hmm.
for more crime, less of a crime. It depends on who you talk
I
to.
mean, I feel like
It's really
it's a different
sticky.
crime. It's apples and oranges, because like
Yeah.
with gambling, like one of the things that I was reading in that book is that guys would throw games. Their teammates would be
Yep.
mad at them, like, "Hey, man, I'll give you a cut," and they're like, "Okay, that I feel a little bit better about that," you know. So there was
Like I
that.
caught you. Oh
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, here, take this, and it's fine. So like, I can understand with gambling, with guys fixing games, it affects guys' paychecks down the road, especially once guys really
Back
start
then
getting
it
paid.
really did. Yeah.
Yeah. And then now with steroids, it's the same thing as far as that goes, though, that like you've got a guy who's good and then becomes great and really gets paid, but he affects some other guy's paycheck. And the same thing happened. We did see the same thing happen with the Astros,
Yep.
right? There was actually a lawsuit for a fringe pitcher who got sent down after facing the Astros because he got shelled.
Yep.
That, and he was probably on the edge anyway. But the fact that they just
Still.
absolutely shredded him, did
Yeah.
not help his cause at all. So
Well, and he wasn't alone. That's
right.
a class action.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think he was. Yeah. I can't remember who it was, but he was the one who started the whole thing. But I don't know.
There was
I feel like
two.
you can't. I feel like you
Yeah,
can't compare everything directly. Right.
totally.
There is correlation along the way, but there are different rules, different impact on the game, things like that.
Yeah.
And you've got to look at each case uniquely. So I don't know. There's nuance, right?
Tons of nuance. And that's why we love baseball, because it's full of nuance.